Please welcome back to the stage Larry Ellison, Clay McGuirk, and Mike Cecilia.
Give me a moment to recover from those numbers. Okay. Oh my God, this is nuts. Okay, no questions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Oh, sure, I'll stand up. Hey guys, Jackson Ader at KeyBank Capital Markets. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, this is great. All right, let's start with those numbers. I guess first I'm curious, Clay, when you gave the gigawatt illustrative example, right? Like we're going to make $60 billion, it's going to cost $39 billion, something like that. Is that purely illustrative? Is that an average? And then your largest customers, whether it's Meta, OpenAI, or what have you, are they even close to that type of gross margin, or do they come in below that? Thanks.
Sure. So first, it is illustrative. But the reason why it's more illustrative than exact details is because a gigawatt is changing very quickly, right? Is it a gigawatt of H200s? Is it a gigawatt of GB200? Is it a gigawatt of GB300? Are we talking about MI355? What's the mixture of the number of GPUs to the amount of storage compared to the amount of general purpose compute? So obviously, it doesn't sound like a big difference, but that can be plus or minus 10 to 20% of revenue both ways. In terms of the margin profile, no, it's very illustrative of even the very largest customers. So we are very committed. Like when I gave you that range of margin, it wasn't like this is the margin and there's an asterisk and this is only for like the customers that aren't driving all of the revenue growth. That would be counterproductive for me, it'd be counterproductive for you. That absolutely is illustrative of even the very biggest deals that we're doing. So I feel like you're like confused or.
Microphone back. No. Okay. No, that is very helpful. And then I'm curious. Larry, maybe this makes more sense for you. Just if we think, and I'll stand up again. I'm sorry. If we think about what AI can do to your internal operations, if we're looking at $21 in EPS in 5 years. What does that imply your internal usage of AI does for your operating expense growth in that kind of time frame?
Yeah, I think, we've underestimated how the positive impact of AI for internal use. I don't think we've, but I'll let the guys comment on that, but I don't think, we do have estimates. Clearly our programmer is going to be more productive. We're going to produce more product. We're going to be more ambitious. We're going to write more programs. We're going from industry suites to, if you will, entire ecosystems. Where you look at the healthcare ecosystem, it's hospitals plus government regulators, plus pharma companies, individual patients. It's entire ecosystems, and we'll be able to do that. So a lot of the productivity we'll have more comprehensive suites of software. But I would still say we've not fully accounted for the scale of the productivity gains, but I'll let these guys respond to that because they actually run the business.
Yeah, a couple examples I think that are relevant. Just internally, I shared earlier in the healthcare section, usually these regulatory cycles take 2 to 3 years to get through approval. We got through a regulatory cycle in 6 months because we're able to automate all of the documentation required for the regulatory. Now, that doesn't really displace any people, but allows us to get to market far more quickly and capture revenue much earlier in a cycle than we were ahead. To Larry's point, we start to look at certain functions across the company in our engineering space, and we do have some internal estimates that we've been going through, and frankly, they keep changing for the better. They actually keep getting better. Code generation, QA, support ticketing, support tickets. I mean, all these operations are large global scale operations. At this point, we're really focused on productivity enhancements. How can we make people more productive so that we don't have to bring on a lot more labor to get the same thing done? Early days in terms of where we'll go in terms of the labor force in general, but I would say we're certainly optimistic that particularly for at least for industry development, I can tell you very specifically that we hit a baseline in cost that scales dramatically, and we don't need to add additional cost from a labor perspective to get not just the same amount done, but actually about twice or 3 times as much done. That's the kind of scale factor that we're looking at.
Let me add one more thing. We really can't just look internally at how AI is going to change Oracle and make us more productive. It's also going to change our customers. It's going to change the FDA. What happens if the FDA can get through clinical trials in half the time they used to? What happens if pharma companies can design drugs in half the time and a quarter the cost than they used to do it? It's not just us changing internally. The entire ecosystem called the planet Earth is going to start becoming more efficient. And there are going to be these incredible effects on the entire economy. We will be a much more prosperous and wealthier world because of artificial intelligence, because of robotics, because of drug design, because of government agencies and regulators making use of these technologies. As they say, AI changes everything. It's going to make us much more efficient across the board.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Rishi Jaluri, RBC. Really appreciate the session. A lot of great detail, and obviously amazing to see these sort of numbers. One question that I think a lot of us have been kind of weighing on the architecture side is, and maybe it's an overly simplistic way, but what goes into, as we think about the balance of power shifting from training to inferencing, fine-tuning, reasoning, et cetera, how easy is it to repurpose that architecture, and really eke out the most efficiency out of all that you're building? Maybe if you could walk us through, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Well, look, in my keynote yesterday, Peter from OpenAI, I think, did a good job of addressing that exact question. So for an even better answer, we can send you the video link. But one of the things he describes is that especially for these large model providers, it's critically important that they have flexible architecture. And the reason for that is that there's this concept that, hey, models get trained, and then they get copied off somewhere, and then reasoning happens. But actually, models are constantly being updated. And also, as a provider, you need the flexibility to shift back and forth, right? You're doing research on new models. You're doing training updates on existing models, and you also have customer demand. Let's say that you're a provider and you have a viral event where suddenly you get a huge amount of demand. You need the ability to say, okay, let's not do that training run and use that for inferencing. But so obviously it's better if the infrastructure is flexible. Well, it turns out you can build it flexibly, and that's exactly what we're doing, right? So you build it for the maximum requirements, which is really the highest kind of demand training workloads. And if you do it well, it's a huge amount of effort around optimizing the power and the data center design, optimizing the networking design. Then fundamentally, that infrastructure is both very capable of doing the reasoning, as well as it's also very cost effective at doing the reasoning.
Great. Thanks very much. Tyler Radke from Citi. Congrats again to you, Clay and Mike, on the well-deserved promotions. Clay, I wanted to go back to one of the slides from your opening presentation around the AI database forecast. I think you're expecting $20 billion of revenue in FY30, and I was just wondering if you could kind of unpack or stack rank the key drivers of that. Is that kind of the traditional database migrations to the cloud, and then what is it going to kind of take for the AI startups that are buying your infrastructure to start using your databases?
Well, I don't know if you saw it, but I signed us up for $20 billion.
I saw it.
Okay, good. Well, look, honestly, I say, Larry, why don't why don't you start? I think it's actually a great question of why are you so excited about people adopting our AI data platform?
Yeah, I think, again, I think there's a lot of ups. It's an incredible number. The 20 billion is a pretty solid growth rate over the next 5 years. That said, we think everyone is going to want to do reasoning on top of. By the way, reasoning and inference. I'm using reasoning and inferencing the same way. And inferencing is kind of the AI models do more than inferencing. They do deduction, they do inferencing, they do rules, they do mathematical calculations. So reasoning might be a little more modern word than inferencing, but it's applied AI. It's actually using the models to reason. I don't know who's not going to do that. Now, the question is how quickly can we deliver it, transfer the technology to our customers? Again, it's the same problem. It's not going to be a demand problem, that is for sure. It's going to be how quickly can we transfer this technology to our customers and help them be successful and get started using this technology. Now, the good news, a lot of our customers are very familiar with the Oracle database. And it's not that they have to relearn the Oracle database. They just have to take advantage of these new features of the Oracle database. And we've got great distribution of the Oracle database right now. You can get it, obviously, you can get it in Azure. You can get, by the way, that alone, just multi-cloud alone, is going to drive a huge amount of adoption. Remember, it wasn't long ago, the only cloud you could get the Oracle database in was OCI. And OCI is a great cloud, but not everyone is in OCI. So the fact that we're building all of these data centers, we started with Azure, and we have quite a few data centers in Azure. And if you look at the numbers, if you unpack our numbers, that 1,000% plus growth rate we have in multi-cloud is being driven by Azure, who were the first ones that signed up for multi-cloud. And we got the data centers all built and running for them. We're not anywhere near at scale at Google, who came second, and then Amazon, who came third. So just scaling out those data centers, just the normal migration, what you asked for, the normal migration that's going to be enabled because of multi-cloud is going to, I think, easily get us to our $20 billion. I'm not trying, believe me, I don't want to raise those numbers up any at all. But Clay said it at 20, I'll take it. But I think multi-cloud alone might get us there. Well, if multi-cloud alone gets us there, what about the use of it as a vector database for AI? It's very hard to extrapolate because we have no points. We really don't know how big that's going to be. But I think it's going to be it's going to be everybody.
I think it's not just an accelerated business on its own as a platform service, but keep in mind, it's the same platform that we build all of our applications on top of as well.
Yeah.
So the 20 billion is just the revenue that we'll collect from that platform service alone. We're also very optimistic that this continues to propel our application growth because all of the agentic AI agents that we spoke about earlier today with Steve and Mark and Seema, all of that's built on top of the AI platform as well. And if not for that, we wouldn't be able to go as fast and grow our applications business as quickly as we are too. So it all sort of works. It all works together.
Yeah, well, I think that's so interesting what Mike is saying because you said, who are the first users of the AI data platform? It would be our internal application groups or our first users. And one of the advantages I've always thought Oracle had, and you could also say one of the disadvantages Oracle had, and I'll come back to that, is that we do applied technology, we do applications, we use our tech, and we also build the tech. We build data centers, we train models, we build databases, we build all of this, we build code generators, we do all this stuff to enable the creation of applications, and then we actually create the applications. None of the other three big cloud vendors do that. They are primarily tech platforms. They don't build large-scale applications. We get all of these insights from building these large-scale applications, where Mike's team will say that, gee, it would really be nice if I could do this more easily, and not that anyone ever asks for more around here. But the database guys get asked for additional features, but more ease of use, more automation and backups. That's how we got so much better at the tech. We had our captive, very large-scale captive applications team that was putting demands on the tech and helping guide, some of the new features that we developed. And as we build the AI data platform, we also test the AI data platform on our own applications. And then what our customers get is something we've already used successfully, rather than them being the guinea pigs very, very early on. So, and then then it's continuous improvement. We constantly make it better because we improve it, we use it, we get insights, we improve it again, all of this other stuff. So, yeah, the database is now inextricably linked to our AI strategy and inextricably linked to our application strategy. So all the pieces at Oracle now are fitting together. Why some people thought it was negative, people said, well, Oracle's trying to do too much, right? Said Oracle really needs to focus either on tech and spin off the application business. I remember hearing that a long time ago. Or they should just do applications and not try to do, because no one can do both. Well, so far we're the only one doing both, but one is more than zero. So we think it's working out very well for us.
Hi there, this is Patrick Colville from Scotiabank. Great to be here, and really exciting time to be part of the Oracle story. I've got one for Clay, please, and one for Larry. So Clay, I think one of the big standout announcements this week from AI World was the AMD partnership. So my question is, I guess, what was the logic there for that AMD partnership? And then also, what does it mean for Oracle's NVIDIA partnership? Because that's been just tremendous for both firms. And then, Larry, if I may, love the long-term targets. One of the questions we get from investors is, what happens beyond fiscal 30? And I guess the reason we get asked...
I missed the funny part. What was we couldn't hear it up here.
He said, what's beyond fiscal 30? So if you could just make up like a 31 projection and a 32, he would love it. It'd be...
Oh, yeah. Well, wait till we talk about 40, man. That's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
Because, do these AI labs, do the tier 1 AI labs, beyond the midterm, start insourcing infrastructure, or do they lean even more heavily on neo clouds, and can Oracle accelerate share gains in beyond the midterm?
Sure. Okay, well, let's start with the question. So look, I'm also very excited about the AMD announcement. And you said, okay, so what does it mean for AMD? What does it mean for NVIDIA? What does it mean for us? Well, first, look, we have an amazing relationship with NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA, I think everyone would agree, did a really good job of getting this industry started. And we, as a tech industry and as AI, we wouldn't be where we are today without the work that NVIDIA did both on the accelerator side and on the networking side. Now, I'm glad that AMD is doing a good job, because I think that we don't have a shortage of demand, we have a shortage of supply.
Yep.
And so the reality, I think that the biggest thing that I find myself having conversations with people across all areas is they're using a scarcity mindset in a world that doesn't have that problem. So for me, it's like, oh, well, if AMD does well, does that mean that NVIDIA is not going to do well? Or I look at it like, imagine there was infinite AI demand. What if we had options and choices that allowed us to scale even faster, right? So our AMD partnership is amazing. The reason we're doing it with them is they've been a great partner across our CPU business, our networking business. They make a good product, and our customers want it. So it's just good for all of us. But then you ask kind of the second question, and I'll let you finish, Larry. You can make it think longer about 2031 and 2032. The reality is that I think that there's perspective that these AI companies are only coming to us because they're temporarily out of luck. If you go, I would advise you to go talk to these people. You saw Peter, go watch my keynote from yesterday with Peter on stage. He doesn't need more problems. He's got a lot of work to do to be able to give the infrastructure he needs to all of his researchers and all the demand of this technology. Everyone wants help. So I don't think that there's a shift at 2031 or 2032 where suddenly people go, oh, there's no more AI infrastructure business for companies like Oracle. I think it's more interesting to figure out, well, we just talked about how we have so much unexpected demand from this inferencing and reasoning and how that then goes out and makes everyone's lives better. Those are going to need computers too. So no, I don't see like a step shift. The reason we give the forecast out is we can only see so far.
I think I'm going to let Mike talk about the future, because I think the future, to understand what the world is going to look like, you have to understand the automation and how the world is going to change. This is back, okay, Oracle using AI, how is that going to impact our financials, using it internally? Well, let's look at our medical business, and then I'm going to let Mike go into detail about that. We need to work with the FDA to make it more efficient to a drug that works, to get it approved more quickly. We need to do a better job of delivering healthcare all over the world with modular, working with companies building modular hospitals all over the world. I know in some countries, healthcare is considered a human right. Other countries, healthcare is hardly existent. We have the chance to democratize a lot of these technologies, make governments more efficient. Sometimes governments are, big corporations might not be very optimally efficient. AI is going to help that. Governments will be more efficient. Poorer countries will get food supplies, they will get energy supplies, they will get hospitals, but they'll get this next generation of smart hospitals. Mike, maybe you can go into again that the world, how we benefit as the world gets better.
Well, I think what does it look like beyond 2030? I think we're rapidly heading towards self-implementing, self-learning, self-healing systems. You can certainly get your head around what that means for the GDP if you just look at, to Larry's point, something like healthcare and hospitals, and I'll expand on that in a second. What does it mean in terms of Oracle? It's hard to say. I can't imagine that there's anything negative to say about it, because I like our chances of being able to deliver that full system ecosystem. But in terms of, let's just talk about clinical trials for a second and compare and contrast. COVID-19 was not that long ago. We were involved as the technology provider and for basically every COVID-19 vaccine and every therapeutic that was coming to market. And here's how it worked. We were shoulder to shoulder with our customers. And what that meant was we had people that would help gather the documentation at the pharma, and they literally rode buses, caravans of buses, to Washington, D.C. with stacks of paper. The bus was half filled with people and half filled with paper. The people had to read the paper on the way to make sure that it was complete. And that's how it worked in COVID-19. It's exactly how it worked. From the most sophisticated pharma to the startup biotech farmers, all of whom were involved in trying to create vaccines and therapeutics. Now, fast forward to now, and we're working with regulators across the world, not just the United States, to actually accept electronic documentation. So that we can take proof points, we can take efficacy points, safety points from these clinical trials, and we can get drugs to market far more faster. What that means is they're actually cheaper, because there's a lot of time and money that's wasted in very long latency processes around documentation, around reading, around all this stuff. The next phase of it is, and we're not that far away from this, is that how do we have clinical trials that are reliant on just real world data? Right now, the gold standard for clinical trials is double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, and there's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It's led us to some wonderful therapeutics and some wonderful vaccines along the way. But what if you could capture data in real time from everybody who's taking a particular pharmaceutical? Not only do you change how fast you get to market, but you actually have a clinical trial that never ends. Because right now, clinical trials are thought of as a project. It's a project and it ends. And once the project ends, we actually stop tracking those people. We actually don't know what the counterindications are of those people when they start to take other medications, or they start to develop other pre-existing conditions down the road. I think that that's an example of not just changing the way an industry works, but actually benefiting humanity in a way that is really just, it's hard to put a monetary value on what that means just yet, but I will tell you that we are very, very quickly approaching the spot where the technology is not the barrier to make any of that happen. But there's one key. You have to have all the data in one spot. You have to have an AI data platform to actually make that work. You've got to be able to get all of that data very quickly. You've got to be able to collect it from multiple endpoints in real time, and I like our chances to do that. That's just one example, Larry, of one industry. I could go on about all 22, but you know,
the fact that what you've done, I mean, it impacted us. The fact that hospitals suddenly have access, they're connected to the banks, and we've connected hospitals to banks. Now the banks can look at, if you will, a bunch of receivables and see, are those receivables likely to, is the payer likely to pay, the insurance company likely to pay the hospital, and can I safely make a loan to the hospital? So again, these ecosystems, as they get connected, so I mean, the liquidity you're providing to the medical business, maybe just a couple minutes on that. And I love the example on, there's an Oracle example that did directly affect our quarter.
Absolutely,
Yeah, no, it's worth mentioning. It's so interesting.
Can I give that? I'll give that.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So we had the banks here earlier. We had JP Morgan and Bank of America here earlier, and they went into quite a bit of detail about the ecosystem. So I think to your point, Larry, we're not just talking about automating the healthcare system. We're actually talking about creating the ecosystem that didn't exist before. That ecosystem is the automated, real-time, autonomous connection between the banks and the providers. We had as we mentioned, lots of very big hospital systems have cash flow problems. Not necessarily a long-term receivables problem, but a point-in-time problem, which is they don't have the cash to pay certain bills, including sometimes our bills at any given point, money that they owed us. So we actually connected one of these banks that was up here today with the hospital system, and based upon the real-time based upon the real-time access to the receivables position, the quality of the payers, all the things I talked about earlier, how many readmissions we had for hip infections, all that stuff, based upon all that data, which they never had access to, they actually created a municipal bond offering for that particular hospital, and actually were able to, for the first time, rate it. So one of the hard problems the banks have is actually being able to rate the debt here, because it's a little bit, a little bit of a crystal ball to say, what's the timeliness, what's the repayment factor, and what's the risk profile associated. That customer in the quarter was able to pay a bill that they owed to us. Now, fortunately, what's more important, they were able to pay the doctors and nurses and everybody else that was in there. But as a side effect, they were actually able to pay us a bill that was, shall we say, rather late. So, these type of ecosystems benefit everybody. And the bank actually got a customer that they didn't have before. So that's the kind of situation that works out in terms of these automated data platforms.
Yeah, I mean, the fact, the liquidity, that information is able to provide, the banks can use AI to consume that, to come up with with bond ratings, to decide to take what the interest rate should be on the receivable, figuring all of that out. With all the information, the receivable safer, you can charge a lower interest rate because it's more likely to be paid. I showed you a picture of greenhouses for the food business. But we got really interesting modular hospitals that, again, we're not doing these, but partners are doing them. And people of the modular hospitals are coming to us and saying, we'd like to incorporate all of the Oracle technology into these modular hospitals, which we will be building all over the world. And people all over the world, healthcare is a huge market. A lot of people can't afford it right now. As the world gets wealthier, more people will get good healthcare. The global economy is going to get much bigger. Help us make our numbers.
Siti Panigre from Mizuho. Larry, I want to ask you about enterprise application software. How is that going to evolve in this AI world? Means, do you expect this to be rewritten like we see in prior architectural shifts, like client server, 3-tier cloud applications were rewritten? Do you think in this agentic world, enterprise applications have to be rewritten again? If so, how Oracle is positioned to take the lead?
Yeah, we're constantly rewriting our applications. Steve, I remember I gave this speech. Every 3 months, we come up with a new version of our applications, which is just unbelievable. If you think about what it used to be like, And SAP customers would upgrade every 20 years, even if they didn't need to. Yeah. Well, actually, sometimes they wouldn't upgrade in 20 years. They just 30 is fine, because it's what some of those SAP implementations in excess of $1 billion to put in SAP. You don't want to do that every 3 months. So we're continuously rewriting our applications. Mike?
We have 600 AI agents live right now across our portfolio of applications, and we have 2,400 customers that are already consuming those AI agents. That's across the industry applications and the Fusion applications. As I mentioned earlier, in banking alone, within the next year, we'll have an additional 126 agents live, just in banking, not counting everything else that we do. And by the way, if history is any teacher for us, and in the AI world, history is not that long ago. Steve, right here on this stage last year, predicted that we would create 100 new Fusion applications over the last 12 months. We actually created 400 and had 400 go live. So that's at the pace and scale that we're moving. Will applications become a collection of AI agents? Yes, and that's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. And certainly, again, at the expense of repeating myself, much easier to do when you've got the underlying infrastructure and the AI data platform on top of it. And we are the custodian of the world's most valuable data. So our agents are incredibly rich, and they're very easy to adopt. They're just part of what we do in our quarterly release. There's not a special AI agent release vehicle and a special implementation plan. You just take it out of the box, and it works.
Larry, you've historically seen value in software companies when the market has been skeptical, and you've never been afraid to price software for the value it delivers. Now we're in a time when the market's questioning the terminal value of application software and is worried about the seat-based model. Do you think AI will shift value away from the application layer to other layers? And how do you think software should be priced?
Interesting question. Do I think the seat-based model works? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination. There really are two models for pricing in applications right now. There's kind of CPU consumption. I mean, how much, and then there's on the supply side, how much CPU did you use? And then and maybe storage, but primarily CPU. How much CPU, GPU did you use on the supply side? And then on the consumption side, how many different people used it? Are the two models? And I think we'll continue, oscillating between those two models. I think for certain kinds of AI, very complex reasoning, I think we're going to go by the supply side model. You're going to pay for GPU usage. For some of the more agentic things, automatically fill out my expense reports for me. Something as mundane as that. Give me a couple of choices for a doctor's appointment. This is like in the NHS in the UK. Show me the soonest appointment I can get, and show me with my preferred doctor how soon I can see him, and I'll decide between those. Or you figure out and decide between those and schedule it for me. That might be down to still be down to how many individuals are using it versus what the costs are of actually supplying the service. And I think, again, we've been constantly adjusting that. This is nothing new. We've been adjusting between these two models for many, many years. What I don't think makes sense, by the way, is people saying, well, here's my application, and here's the really cool AI stuff you buy separately. Yeah. I wouldn't even know how to build an application like that. If you don't buy the AI stuff, your application won't work at all. I mean, it is your application. So I don't understand the separate charge stuff because the AI is going to be so dominant. I think that's a transitory model. That model will disappear from most of the application companies who are using it right now during the introduction of AI. We're more in the middle of this, converting our applications to AI, where they don't work without the AI parts.
Hi, excuse me, it's John DiFucci from Guggenheim. And Larry, thanks for that answer. That was actually my question. That last part too, I really appreciate. But another question I had was, AI changes everything. In Oracle, some of the stuff you showed us today is changing the world of healthcare and maybe agriculture. I mean, these are things that, Oracle's always run a business for profit. But I see something more here, like to me anyways, having covered Oracle for 26 years, it's Oracle sort of doing good for the world, not that you haven't before, technology itself does it. But I guess going back to running a business for profit, because there's a lot to do with Cerner. You acknowledge you have to rewrite everything, and you're doing that. But when should we expect something like Cerner, which is huge, to get to the profit margins we'd expect for a software company, if ever? And how should we think about that?
Well, I'll give you a very high level answer because I work at a very high level space. And he's the guy who builds those applications. I'll let him go into the detail. But I think we will have largely finished the rewrite of all of Cerner next year. Everything will be new. And we will have a comprehensive, and it's not just Cerner that we rewrote. We're writing agents for payers. We're writing agents for clinical trials and all of these other things. So it's going to be much bigger than Cerner ever was. Cerner automated hospitals and clinics. This is automating the entire healthcare ecosystem down to individual patients and individual doctors, individual nurses. The code will be in place next year, and I really don't understand how a small company can compete with what we're doing in healthcare. But Mike, take it.
So in terms of doing good for the world, you're absolutely right. I mean, and I'll tell you that there's nothing more inspiring, and there's nothing that'll tug at your heartstrings more than walking around a VA hospital and looking and working with people, which we do every day, who are caring for those who serve our country, the United States. And that's a mission for us that will continue to be a mission, and we will deliver for all of those people and actually all hospitals worldwide. So you're absolutely right. There is something here that's a mission, and we've got people rallied around that mission. In terms of thinking about how the business evolves profitably, I don't think we should stop and just think about Cerner. I think we should think about the entire ecosystem of what we built. We had customers, two of Epic, our primary competitor in the EHR market, two of their largest customers in the world, the CEOs, were on stage with SEMA just 3 weeks ago in our Orlando conference, and they were talking about the AI data platform. We're not just talking about the EHR. We're talking about all of it. And it's going to take all of it to fix at least the American healthcare system. The American healthcare system, there's no more money to go into the American healthcare system. As we said earlier, we actually have to be successful, we have to take money out of the American healthcare system, but I think we can make more money doing that, because the only way to take money out of the American healthcare system is to be able to automate the entire process. Just the EHR is not enough. It's got to be supply chain, it's got to be HR, it's got to be finance, it's got to be the banking thing, the banking relationship. It's all of that. Right. And when you look at our Fusion business, healthcare is actually one of our most popular businesses for our HCM and ERP applications. In fact, we're doing wonderfully well in the healthcare business with our Fusion business. When you look outside the United States, we are the largest provider, and our growth profiles are excellent outside the United States in just the pure EHR market before you even count all the rest of it. We just won a deal yesterday in the Middle East that was signed here, displaced SAP with Fusion, with our Oracle Health EHR, with OCI, for all their bespoke workloads. People are buying all of it. So we no longer think about the Cerner margin, so to speak. In the first couple of years of acquisition, obviously we keep those things separated, but we don't think about it as Cerner anymore. We think about it as the Oracle Health ecosystem. And when you put that all together, we're actually already operating at a clip which is not diluting the company, not dilutive to the company margin. And I think to the point that Larry made, I just don't see how a competition is going to keep up with what we're doing, because I go all the way back to sort of first principles and this is what I said to some analysts at our health conference. How many fuel cell power plants is Epic building? That's the first question I asked, right? How many large language models are generative AI models are positioned on their cloud stack? Second question I asked. Then I stopped and I said, you get the point, right? Unless you're going to do all of it, you're actually not going to do that. And I think the healthcare system in the United States is tiring of point solutions. They're tiring of very large system integrated, but they don't have the money, just don't have the money. The only answer is complete system automation, and for those reasons, I think we're going to be just fine, if not wonderful in healthcare. And to your most important point, going to do well for the world in the process.
Let me just add one thing that I've said several times before, but is, what is our model for all of this? My model, at least in my head, is Musk's law. I don't think Elon ever created Musk's law. I mean, he didn't write it down, but he just did it. And if you look at Tesla, how did you? He had to build an electric car ecosystem. He couldn't. The problem was not building an electric car. I mean, if you build an electric car, you got to be able to recharge that car in Sweden and Norway and Vietnam and all these other places. How do you build a global charging system? How do you do that? How do you building an electric car is really easy. Rivian can do it. A lot of people can do it. I can build an electric car in my basement. But how do you build 10 million of them, 20 million of them a year? How do you build those factories? The largest building ever built in human history was in Austin, Texas, is the Tesla factory, filled with robots. You got to build robots. The robots he's building, the Optimus robots, the first inspiration, the first use of those Optimus robots are in Tesla factories. He had to create, the back of the Model Y is one piece of steel. It's lighter, so he had to create all new stamping machines, for doing this. Different machines, different, factory automation, supply chain, battery technology, battery science. Had to do the whole ecosystem for an electric car to change transportation. But he did it, and it works pretty well. Those cars are rather inexpensive, considering they have these incredible computers to drive them. And he had to solve one of the hardest AI problems of all time, which is self-driving and real-time AI. So you take what he did at Tesla, and that's how at least we look at the ecosystem for healthcare. It's not simply a hospital or a clinic. It's the patients. How do patients make appointments? How do payers decide to authorize that hip replacement or not? What's the process they go through? How does a regulator approve a new drug? How does a pharma design a new drug? That's the health ecosystem, by the way, a good deal more complicated and larger and a bigger opportunity than the electric car market, even if the electric cars are fancy electric cars and fully robotic. So the way we're approaching these problems, the way Mike's teams are approaching these problems, is to look at automating the entire ecosystem. Our HR teams changed when we bought Cerner, because we now had to train doctors, train nurses, schedule people differently. It was they were partially gig economy, partially hospital employees. Supply chain, inventory, all the shipping. Keeping track of inventory in hospitals, unbelievably complicated. And I'm not going into all of the details, but we had to design RFID tags and RFID readers. There's security in hospital systems. It's doing the entire ecosystem. If you do the entire ecosystem, you get a much better result. And it's a much, much bigger opportunity.
Thank you. I just wanted to say congrats to Mike and Clay. Obviously, you guys are going to be great partners with Larry, but it's the only time I'll say this, but I kind of miss Safra a little bit.
She's here. She's here.
Said he misses Safra.
Unless you folks, Larry, Mike, Clay, unless you want to keep going, this will be the last question. But if you want to keep going, they'll stay here all day with you. So your call.
It's up to these guys. I've got nothing to do. I'm retired. you know? Not actually, not true. It's really not true. Safra was just shaking her hand. No. Yeah, okay, so you get to retire, I don't? Okay, then. Something's very wrong with that. That is something very, I know you're not retired, but you're sitting there and somehow I'm still hitting here. Okay, all right, I'll figure it out in time. I think you guys want to keep going a little bit? Up to you guys. Ready? Yeah. Okay.
Hey guys.
Fire away.
Awesome. I'm over here, Larry Brad Zelnick with Deutsche Bank to your left. I actually have two questions. Larry, my first one, I've been coming here for many years, and every year I look forward to seeing you and the team. Every year I get a year older, and you seem to stay the same age. So,
if it were only true.
My first question, if you have one or two tips for how we all stay young, I would love to hear it. My second question
oh my God.
For you and for Clay.
I'll send you the research papers.
Okay. Great. As we think about Stargate, can you talk about how strategic AI is to governments around the world and how Oracle is working with them hand in hand to make it all a reality? Thanks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you imagine for a minute that you were a government, and let's imagine that what we've all been saying is at least mostly true, you would want to make sure that you have that technology available inside your country and to your citizens. Otherwise, it's, I think in the same way that people have, for the past few hundred years, well, how do I manage my food supply? How do I manage my energy generation? How do I make sure I have the right telecommunications, right? AI is technology that we think is even more valuable than that. You need to have access to it. And so we're in constant conversations with different governments in multiple different areas. I think one aspect of it is around how do you make sure that your citizens are getting access to the AI, right? And that's about bringing access to those models to those different geographies. There's the conversation about, well, how do we get things like sovereign AI? Part of the way in which we solve that, if you think it, when I was talking about our distributed cloud situation, we have a set of technologies that enable us to actually deploy regions globally, to enable them for individual customers, but also for local sovereign operators. So as an example, the one I used earlier about eAnd, they not only have a sovereign alloy that they're using to serve the needs of the UAE government, they also have access to the latest and greatest GPUs inside that environment. So I think it's critically important for all of these governments to have that technology, not just from an infrastructure perspective, but then also making sure that, because if you don't have the infrastructure, how can you suddenly then deploy the latest and greatest EHR on top that makes use of all that AI? And as Larry said, we don't have a non-AI version anymore. Now, specifically to the question about Stargate, I think lots and lots of countries are very interested in how do we get that sovereign AI, and we have good relationship with OpenAI as kind of I think due to our flexibility and our speed of being that partner of choice to go out and then deploy local sovereign AI infrastructure facilities for them. And so there was UAE Stargate, there's things that we're working on right now in Africa. I just had a conversation with a customer yesterday out of Latin America that's very interested in the same thing. And part of what I think makes us a great partner in those sovereign AI conversations is that we can scale up and we can scale down. Not all countries need a 500 megawatt OpenAI deployment. Some of them might be very well served by 5 megawatts. Well, we can do that and we can do it quickly, and our relationship with the top leading model providers actually works to our advantage, because then we can go deploy the infrastructure and then suddenly the AI is available, both in terms of sovereignty as well as in local secure access. So I think Oracle's extremely well poised across all the different layers of the stack for sovereign AI and enabling all the world's citizens to get access to that technology in a secure and controlled way.
Hey guys, Alex Zukin with Wolfe Research. Thank you for an amazing day filled with truly unbelievable numbers. I have maybe just a quick 3-part question, which is
only 3 parts.
A quick 3-part question.
Is there a prequel?
I have a really fast 9-part question.
Yes.
I'm just sorry. I'm just enjoying myself up here.
As we look at the pacing of reasoning versus training, when does that inflection point happen? Like in 2030, what does that workload ratio look like? Because it's important for margins.
Interesting.
You talk about demand and supply. How do we think about the pacing of capex to facilitate that? And then any backstory on how you're able to kind of jump over some of these other hyperscalers to win and become the preferred vendor for some of the model companies as they scale beyond what we all thought was possible in a given time scale.
Those questions have almost nothing to do with each other. I feel like it's like, would you like a scoop of ice cream on the salad with some bread? I've already forgot. Did you remember the first part of the question?
Yeah.
I'll start with the last part. Why are people picking us? At least I remember that part of the question. I can answer it quickly. Look, the reason that customers are picking us is for the reasons that we say customers are picking us, and for the same reasons that those customers also stand up and tell people like you why they're picking us. And like I said, Peter from OpenAI was on stage yesterday explaining exactly why they pick us. It's because we are extremely fast at getting things done. Everyone has excess needs. If you can be somebody that has an answer that says, okay, you need capacity. If you go 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 8 months, okay, well, I like 8 months better than 2 years. Okay, if you have unique requirements where you show up and you're like, hey, I have custom requirements around some of my networking or the way in which I want to power cap this infrastructure, or I want to co-design it with you, or perhaps I want to deploy it in a location that might have lower cost. Okay, no, 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 yes. Okay, so if someone's saying yes to the things that you need and they're delivering very, very rapidly, and they're extremely high performance and very cost efficient, that's why people are picking us. And that's why it's not just one customer, it's all of the customers, both very, very large customers and small customers, right? When I showed the details of 700 plus AI infrastructure customers, that's why they're all choosing OCI. Now, not 100% of the market, we do definitely have competition, but as we continue to execute, and as I think Peter said yesterday, this community is very small. As this information gets out there more and more, all of those people are coming to us with more and more capacity demands. Now you're going to have to repeat the other two sections because I already forgot. Yeah, Larry, you want to talk about training versus reasoning and how you think it changes?
Well, everyone's going to do reasoning and very few people are going to do training. So it will definitely cross over. I think it's a great, and actually it's quite a fabulous question, because I don't think we have enough data points yet to be able to figure out when it's going to cross over. I think what's going to help is the AI. Believe it or not, I think it has a lot to do with how good our data platform is. If our AI data platform is as good as we think it is, it's going to help people get to inferencing / applied AI / reasoning, all the same thing, using the models as opposed to training the models, which is, again, everybody. So we have to make it easy for everybody to do on their own private data. 5 years from now, will we still be spending more money on training than on reasoning? I don't know. Anyone, Clay, you want to take a shot at that?
Well, I'm going to have a complicated answer, and then Mike's going to have a useful answer. Yeah. I think people also, I think it's an interesting question. I think it's also a question that's unanswerable. So look, if you think about what training does, we take together all of the information that humans are willing to share, and then we train something on it. Eventually, you run out of data. Okay, well, how does data get created? Well, people use reasoning to create data, and they write it down. If you actually look at where AI models are going, much of the data that they're going to be training on is actually data that they're doing their own reasoning on.
Yeah.
So I think this question, if you actually look at what I think in 5 years, what most training of AI models looks like, it looks like AI models thinking.
Interesting answer.
And then AI models using the results of that and going, is this better or not? If you look at how RLHF, right, reinforcement learning with human feedback, works today in these AI models, what's happening is you train a model and then you give the results out to human beings who score it, and then you feed that back into the training data. Guess what happens as the models get really smart? You don't pay a bunch of people to score the outputs. Right. You have models score the outputs. So I think that that's kind of what I think Peter yesterday was trying to say, was like, hey, you think of these as different things. They are the same thing.
Yeah.
And in the same way that we don't think of our brain as like, well, are we using our reasoning function right now? Are we learning? You're constantly reasoning, and as you're reasoning, you're also learning. It's going to be this iterative cycle.
Let me reframe the question. So I think it's really simple, in ways much, forgive me, I think simpler to understand. When will people creating AI models be taking in more money than they're spending?
Well, I think that actually depends less on how much money they're taking in, because that's growing very, very rapidly. I think it's when do we reach diminishing returns on spending extra money, how it makes it more valuable. And if I had the answer to that, we would do a different company.
Yeah, even the simpler version of the question is still hard. Is the same question and still hard to answer.
When we create
still hard to answer. I think the problem I have, and I agree with everything Clay said. It gets very blurry because every time you ask AI a question, it's learning something. It's training itself. So what is training? What is inferencing / reasoning? How fast does, let's just pick one example, OpenAI or Grok, how long are they in hyper-growth mode, where they're spending money faster than their revenue? Because that's very common in the early, obviously railroads obviously spend a lot of money. When does it cross over? When do passenger tickets exceed laying of track? I don't think we have quite enough data yet on inferencing and the speed of inferencing growth. Though one of the most interesting calls we ever got was, hey, do you guys have any capacity? Well, where? Anywhere? Well, how much are you looking for? All of it? You want to buy all the capacity we're not using everywhere in the world? Yeah. Okay. I've never heard that one before, but I haven't heard a lot of this stuff before. This is very strange. I remember I called Safra. I said, someone just called and said, what the hell is going on? I mean, it's not like I was trying to sell anything. They called us. I just wanted to buy everything we had. So I don't think we have quite enough data. I think we'll understand it a lot better about believe it or not, a year from now. I mean, it sounds funny, but I think Mike?
It's really a philosophical, multi-part question. It's a great question. How does synthetic data feed into this? Is it really retraining or is that inferencing? And then, the next frontier or two is how does private data fit into all this? And do we take some of that scale and create very rapid small language models too for enterprises? I think that's going to continue to evolve over the next, I would say 2 years, but probably not even at the rate we're moving. We're going to have clarity on that. But I think either way, we're going to be at a good position to serve those markets.
Yeah. I'm going to say this is the last question for me.
Yeah.
You guys keep going. It's fine.
If he leaves, I'm leaving.
Mike.
Okay.
Yes.
We work together as a group, okay? You can't just walk off and leave me and Mike out here.
Watch me.
All right. And then Maddie's giving us the hook as well. So thank you all very much.
Are we done?
You are done.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage, Ken Bond.
Okay. All right. Microphone, please. Microphone. Okay. Thank you all very much. That concludes the show. Thank you very much for coming out. Really appreciate you taking the time out. Look forward. If you have any questions, just follow up with us. Take care. Safe travels home. Bye-bye.